hiring as well.
Mm.
There is definitely an inroad of AI that is being made into the TA space. Although a few minutes ago you said that it will not replace humans, I do see
The
that
heart of
the
humans.
heart of humans. Yes, I do see it. Honestly, I do see it replacing a few recruiters
Yeah.
who are not able to upskill, and maybe we can talk about upskilling a little later on.
Right.
But I am seeing an erosion of talent, erosion of AI in talent in various steps in the talent acquisition space.
Mm-hmm.
Be it in candidate sourcing, or be it in resume screening, resume matching.
Yeah.
There are some pretty smart algorithms over there that can really save you a bunch of time and a lot of energy as well.
Right.
And the quality of output that actually comes out
Mm-hmm.
um, is pretty standardized. Many times it's non-discriminatory.
Right.
So some biases that are there sometimes get negated.
Yeah.
That's one aspect. The other aspect where I'm seeing technology, maybe AI, maybe not AI, but technology is in the area of the candidate experience. And many of us have been, on the other side of the table when we have sitting for interviews, when we're giving interviews, and we've had a bad experience, walking in, filling up a bunch of forms.
Mm-hmm.
Many times when we give an interview, we have to follow up and say, hey, was I selected? Was I rejected? What went wrong? Can you tell me? When
Mm-hmm.
am I going to get my offer letter? When do I? And that kind of overall experience sometimes is not a very great experience.
Yeah.
I think using technology and using AI,
Right.
there's a lot of scope to transform the candidate experience.
Wow.
So many points to talk about, but I'll just pick up these two, which is the candidate experience and the
Sure.
technology bit.
Thank you. Thank you, Neville. So, you want to add?
Thanks, Neville. Um, Technology in hiring has to be thought more promptly now, because while TCS is already in the with the wave, maybe
Right.
leading it as well.
Right.
What is to be importantly noted here is it's not only a companies who's looking at AI. It's
Mm.
also candidates who are very handily using AI.
Very interesting.
And
Yeah.
while we think today, or chatbot or chat GPT for that matter, is yet to pick up, we have recently seen news around how chat GPT has crashed just
Hmm.
because of one train, right?
Hmm.
So it's not something that they are surprised.
Right.
The job market is not surprised with implementation of technology, especially AI. And that's where, like Neville rightly mentioned, it might, if at all not upskilled, replace a few recruiters.
Hmm.
But at the same time, better pick up is something that I would say.
Wow, very interesting. So I think I'll come back to you, Sayog. Give us some examples.
Sorry.
Yes. Well, what is TCS doing?
Okay.
And the use of technology in talent acquisition. Can you give us some examples?
I'll take that opportunity to mention a couple of examples with a lot of pride. Um, a few years back,
Hmm.
when it came to campus hiring, which TCS is very well known about, right?
And campus hiring is runs into thousands and thousands. How much is it average?
Well, in those times, we were talking about 80,000,
How
ninety
much?
thousand people to be screened to be hired for 40,000 people.
80,000, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Uh,
Wow.
okay.
Okay.
The surprise is yet to. But then we were reaching out to specific schools,
Hmm.
the schools who have created a mark. Uh, it doesn't mean that students from schools who have not created mark may not have the right talent.
Hmm.
What are we looking at? Let's say especially IT industry, and I'm sure every other industry is looking for a problem solving mindset, and it could be in any part of the college, any part of the country, right? That's where our innovation, not only AI, I would say, but technology came into picture. NQT, which is National Qualifier Test, today screens 4 lakh students
Hmm.
within 2 days,
Hmm.
and we have reduced the 3 months time frame to complete campus hiring to 18 days.
Wow. 3 months to 18 days
And
using technology.
it's absolutely technology based. Like Neville was saying, we do skill based,
Right.
uh, attuned to the business requirement. We are able to predict the business. We are able to predict what kind of requirements. We are able to screen, assess the interest of the candidate, match them to the profile and the related trainings well before they are within the organization. So NQT is one amazing example with a lot of pride I would talk about. Chroma, not the Chroma Electronic Center. Chroma is one of our platforms which is already transformed the employee engagement, sorry, candidate experience part of it. The talent integration, which is rarely talked about. But if you talk about TCS particularly, we're very, very sure that we want our people to come to office. And it's all in
We
news
know that
everywhere.
very well, don't we?
Absolutely.
5 days, I guess, right now.
2019 and COVID and everything.
Right.
Since then, 80% of the workforce is new. How do we expect a new workforce to be integrated with the culture of the organization?
Mm-hmm.
The culture cannot be online. That's where we were talking about the heart of HR. You like you mentioned, have to be there in the organization to be a part of that team to really work together towards the solution. And that's where Chroma has enabled us in umpteen number of ways using AI as well, machine learning as well, to engage candidate experience and further integrating them with the culture of the organization.
Very, very interesting example. Neville, you want to talk about tools, technologies, and how that's helping
Yeah,
organizations?
but nothing on the size, on the scale of TCS.
Right.
You guys are like way beyond. But Nidhi, a very interesting example I'd like to share where we use
Sure.
technology in the TA space um, as recent as Monday, this few days ago. So what happened was one of our customers came to us and said that we want to hire people in a particular skill. And many times, like customers do, they gave us one paragraph of what they wanted and said, "This is what we want. We want to hire a couple of people by the next week." And this was a pretty rare skill. And we were wondering, how are we going to go about this?
Mm-hmm.
So, firstly, we used Chat GPT to make the job description using that one paragraph. We further went into another AI tool. I think it was Perplexity, to create questions based on the JD. What can we ask the potential candidates? So, using that one paragraph, we got the job description and
Mm-hmm.
we got a bunch of questions.
Mm-hmm.
We then worked with an AI tool which we have purchased
Mm-hmm.
to source CVs. So, what happens is we use Naukri. So, this CV went up on Naukri. People started applying. When they applied, the resumes went into this particular tool, an AI based tool.
Mm-hmm.
This happened on Tuesday. So resumes started hitting the AI tool on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
We had about 200 applicants in about 24 hours.
Wow.
What this AI tool did is looking at the questions that we had got from Perplexity, which we had fed into the tool. It's basically a interviewing, not a chatbot, but it's an interviewing agent that started asking questions to the candidates in a conversational manner. So we had 200 people. I think the tool was pretty good because out of 200 people, it actually spoke to 180 people. So that's what, like a 90-95% hit ratio. Asking questions and then tweaking the questions based on the candidate's responses. So it was not like a one, two, three, four, five questions. It was like you ask this question. If the answer is this, then go into this, ask another question. So from 180 people who gave the test, who spoke to the chatbot, we were able to shortlist 80 out of them. The next was an interviewing assessment that we wanted to do. This was all on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
By 4 o'clock, I remember the tool's name. The tool's name is VCP. We create problems. Crazy name for a tool, but we use this particular tool to give assessments, short assessments to the 80 people who were shortlisted. Out of 80 people, 4 people were shortlisted. So those 4 people are people who we need to just kind of do an HR round with and shortlist them. All this happened on Wednesday. So by Friday, by tomorrow, I'm pretty confident that we will be able to kind of go ahead and release offers to at least 3 out of those people and maybe have one person join us soon. On the same side, we gave this requirement to two of our top recruiting agencies. They got back to us yesterday, Wednesday, saying, "Hey, can you explain the JD to us more? We're going to be offering people Friday." And these guys came to us Wednesday saying, can you kind of explain the CB, the JD to us more? That's the speed and efficiency that I actually saw in the last, 3-4 days.
Wow. Where does the heart go then? Where do humans go in this? Because I think more and more information fed into these learning models, it's going to make them smarter. So, what's going to be the future of talent acquisition team, which today maybe for TCS runs into hundreds? Runs into hundreds. Talent acquisition team in TCS must be running into hundreds.
More than that,
More
actually.
than that, thousands.
Around 1,200 people across
1,200
the globe.
people
So, yeah.
in talent acquisition team in TCS, which by the way, for audience is 6.5 lakh employees. One of the largest employers in India, with a 1,200 plus talent acquisition team. Where does this leave them?
Yeah. Um, Good part is TCS has very consciously been venturing into the space of uh, Gen AI, particularly generative AI, particularly. So it's a very clear stance. The organization believes in data-driven decisions. If it is an algorithm, bias is obvious. So obviously there has to be a human component overseeing the outcomes. One important thing that we have again consciously done is, besides data driven decisions that we are driving through the tools, we've also particularly looked at interventions at every stage of hiring.
What does that
So
mean?
for example, um, diversity is something that we will particularly talk about, and not as an organization but as HR. We will particularly talk about, okay, we are at 36.3% at an organization level, with this minuscule hiring. When you're hiring a bunch of people, what kind of impact would it cause? This is not something that the AI will do. So we are very mindful from the HR team that I'm referring to, or my own team for that matter. We know that ChatGPT will do what we will ask it to do. So that's where the human component comes in. Like you mentioned, then what is it that we are left with? The ChatGPT will not do things by, or ChatGPT or Gen AI or the AI tools that we are using for that matter. They won't do things by themselves unless us do. And what is the connotation that we want to do is something that is maintained very, very clearly by the organization, by the teams.
Very interesting. So, I think as organizations, it's all about also then being very conscious about what tools we are using and what we consciously want our HR teams, our people to do. And therefore, I think that conversation cannot be left to tomorrow or day after. I think it needs to happen now, right now, currently. So that's a great takeaway there. So, thanks for
Can I
that.
add? Can I add one more
Please, please,
aspect?
please,
See,
please.
one important aspect as a large organization, because of volumes as well, is compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, the law can be interpreted to the tools, to the
Mm-hmm.
teams, but when it comes to governance about that compliance, again needs human intervention. So
Right.
while all of it is automated for us,
Yeah.
um, at every juncture,
Right.
compliance is something that still needs human interaction, and that's it's a significant size of team for compliance and governance also within the TAGT.
Yes.
So that is something that will continue to play its significance all throughout. I don't see it getting replaced.
Sure. Absolutely. No, Neville, you have something to add here. What are humans going to do in all this, or HR teams to be specific?
I think it's going to be a lot. I think a lot of the operational stuff will get probably taken away. I do agree that the heart of TA and HR will not be able to be replaced. And like Suyog rightly said, systems are as good as what you give it or what you input into it. You input great stuff, you get great stuff. Input garbage, you get garbage. I think our recruiters need to kind of understand that because, and unfortunately, some of the recruiters are still shying away from using some of these tools. I see that as a big challenge.
When you say recruiters, it's recruiting partners
Yes,
that we work with.
recruiting, yeah, recruiting partners as well as some of the recruiters within the organization.
Ah, interesting.
Some of them maybe
Hmm.
um, they don't rely too much, or they don't depend, or they don't have too much of faith on the AI models. They
Mm-hmm.
still think that a human screening a resume would have a better hit ratio as compared to a system.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's a bit of a challenge because many of them have not explored these kind of tools to the limit,
Yeah.
and they will probably be at a disadvantage as compared to people who are adopting technology much faster.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from just that bit, I think the teams also need to focus a lot on the engagement bit of candidates. While a
Yeah.
lot of that can be kind of automated as well, I still think there's a lot of human intervention that goes into it. And while you have, I mean, all of us get automated IVR calls from ICICI Bank, SBI Bank, and we don't like to talk to those bots because they're really not personalized. So there are going to be situations like that when even candidates are kind of, they don't want to talk to a bot. They would prefer talk to a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I see that as a minimum, but I think that's one area that our teams need to kind of focus on as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be interesting. So there's going to be a mix of a bot and a human being, because I see that, because you don't want to always talk to a bot, and but companies want to move to a bot, but at the same time you need the bot, but at the same time you also need human beings. So I think that's going to be a interesting mix from that
Just
perspective.
many of us think of the bot as the ICICI or the SBI bot.
Right.
I think bots have evolved to I mean, the way a bot communicates and speaks to us, you would not think it to be a system. It pretty much adapts to the conversation, understands what you're trying to say. It has emotion in its voice.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to distinguish at times.
Wow. Okay. So emotions also coming. So the hard part also going in. It's going to be really interesting for HR. The hard part is also the emotions are coming. Okay, let's move a little bit interestingly on analytics, and then I'll talk a bit about future outlook. And we I'm sure there are lots of questions that you want to ask or engage in conversation with. So we'll open it up for question answers. Analytics and talent acquisition. Two words. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the traditional metrics of analytics of recruitment still hold good to in my opinion. I'll just pick a couple of two, and maybe so you can take some more. I think there's a lot of focus on the cost of hire right now, because there's a lot of
Mm.
thrust on the efficiency of the overall organization. So costs, margins, etc., under pressure. So we want to do more with less. But that's also like I would say like a double-edged sword, because you can't get efficiency, quality, and the desired ROI without investing in something.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to put your money into a smart tool or an application or automate a process that gives a desired result. That requires money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, unless the tool is not used efficiently, you're not going to get the ROI.
Right.
So the cost per hire sometimes is a bit of a challenge to manage. The other one that is important right now, in my opinion, is, and I spoke about it earlier, is the experience of the candidate.
Yeah.
And that can be determined as, the offer to joining ratio, how many people actually pick up the phone when you talk to them, and those kind of metrics. And there are various tools that actually evaluate the experience of the candidate while the recruiter is speaking, or while an evaluation or an assessment is going on. There are various background processes that are running to see how well the candidate is responding. Is the candidate engaging enough? Is the candidate asking any questions? Those kind of background processes run to evaluate
Mm-hmm.
the candidate's experience.
Mm-hmm.
So these are two. There are many more, but maybe.
Sure, sure, sure. I think I did refer to data analytics or data driven decisions in my conversation earlier. I'll
Mm.
mention a few more aspects.
Sure.
Um, recruitment is, at least in my opinion, from the organization that I refer to or represent today, is two ways. It is internal recruitment and external recruitment, right? External further has freshers and experienced professionals. And then we are talking about volumes. It is but natural, very human to miss out certain or have a bias at times. So what do you ensure to drive the workforce plan at an organization level? Presently, that's exactly what I'm doing. Is we look at the organizational data month on month. What are the gross additions? What are the attritions? How do we predict more pipeline from both fronts, additions as well as attritions? What is the business pipeline looking at? And then arrive at a number of what should be the number that should be
Mhm.
handed over for internal hiring and external hiring.
Yeah.
All of it is money. It's not humans only, while it is the revenue is realized with the individual contributing to the deliverable, but in tandem, rather, the first step is money, is cost, right? So how do we really arrive at that? A lot of data analytics have been month on month driving predictive analysis through to develop our workforce plan, which is a very dynamic component and is viewed at the highest level in the organization. All of the CXOs look at it, also provide their inputs,
Mm.
knowing how the market overall is looking at things. Like the current situation, the market presently is, kind of said to be slowing down. However, the job market is maintained its pace. It is not dropped. At the same time, attritions are at all-time low for TCS.
Correct.
So how are we exactly looking at growth? All of it is data analytics, and everything of this, while it is automated, a lot of deliberation goes in basis data. And I think a talent acquisition as a function with a lot of pride, going very very basic here, I would say we are the only function in the HR fraternity who can very concretely quantify the work.
Mhm.
Not many of other HR functions would be able to do that, right? So there is always subjectivity in every other function. You cannot really talk about
Correct.
any other parameter at that magnitude in
Mhm.
any other HR function as
Very
compared to
interesting.
what talent acquisition
Right.
is.
Right.
So that's one key attribute
Mhm.
that any recruiter should develop, has to develop to be a successful talent acquisition professional. So data analytics, hands down, is one of the mandatory trainings that we have for our recruitments.
I think that's very interesting because when we look at talent acquisition, we are only talking about external recruitments, and there is such a huge pool internally within organizations, and the role of technology for reviewing candidates internally through your internal job postings. And I'll just give you my example from my organization, Michelin. 85% of employees move internally. So this is the only company in my HR career where I work with my team members internally, as HR professionals come from teams like purchase and commercial and sales and marketing, and I'm even I also have somebody from IT, an IT Kharagpur pass out. So it's a very interesting mix from that perspective. I think the reason they hired me because I think it became everybody internal, and probably they needed somebody from outside from HR experience. But very very interesting to note that an organization like Michelin, where 85% of your workforce, and this is in their reports, moves internally every year, right? How do you then look at talent acquisition strategies internally and the use of technology to review candidates internally, to filter candidates, to look at upskilling of candidates, reviewing of candidates, training of candidates internally, and making them ready for different roles? So, because as soon as we think about talent acquisition, we do tend to think, laterals or engineer trainees or trainees, or just trainees coming in into our workforce. But it's very interesting if you start also looking at talent acquisition from an internal movement perspective and the role of technology there. I think that's a great figure for me to look at. Neville, what are your thoughts around how this is going to shape up the
Yeah, I think
analytics?
Nidhi, those numbers of Michelin of 85% are amazing. And
85%, yes.
that's truly amazing.
Mhm.
We're nowhere close to that, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
But I think that's a very important point you bring out because as an organization, we want to give people, our people, growth and mobility options within the organization. And if we don't, they look outside.
Right.
And many times when we talk to people, while I think Mr. Goyal said that people leave managers and organizations, people also leave for better roles and better prospects, not necessarily money.
Absolutely.
In that sense, um, we need we need efficient tools and systems in the company that are probably outside the talent acquisition purview to understand what people are capable of. Um, number one. Number two, what are their aspirations? And number two, if they need to meet their aspirations, what kind of learning inputs does the organization need to give?
Yeah.
While this happens many times informally, um, I think it's best if an organization does have a formal process to identify these set of people. It could be your high performers, your people who are on a fast track program, those kind of people. But having said that, I don't think an organization should only focus on them and isolate the rest of the people. It should be looked at in a totalitarian manner. I can give you an example at Harbinger. When I was introduced, somebody spoke about the tool Polestar that we have. We don't do annual performance reviews anymore. We've actually junked that because for all the HR professionals in this room, if anybody says that I truly love my performance review process, I would be extremely surprised. We do monthly check-ins. We've built a tool that does monthly check-ins. Um, that rates people on their goals, and also in kind of it has a dialogue that encourages people to talk, the managers and the directs to talk and talk about concerns and things that are going well. But every quarter, what it does is the manager is supposed to rate the employee on his potential. Is the person a high, medium, or low potential? What's the next role that this person wants to play? And by when does the manager think this person will be ready for that?
Right.
And 3 or 4 inputs what the person needs to do to scale up to this particular role. Now, using that information, obviously, we export it to Excel. But Excel, by the way, everybody uses Excel. I still love Excel. Using Excel, we can actually ascertain people, patterns, and trends where we find that people can move up the ladder pretty fast.
Yeah.
And we've been successful. For example, we had a situation last year where we were not able to hire architects. And using this mechanism, we identified a bunch of tech leads who were high potential, highly engaged, and who said could this position in the next 6 to 12 months. Using the inputs, we could move them pretty fast.
Yeah.
So that's a live example that I have to share.
Thank you. And it's interesting, Neville mentions Excel. I was talking to a few HR professionals and they said the best alternative to all the HRIS that we have in the world globally and with us is Excel. So Excel is still very much in use, whether we like it or not. So it comes in different forms and comes together. It's a partner for us in HR, and we can't deny that. Very interesting, and I'll open it up for questions because I thought it's such an interesting topic of talent acquisition and use of technology and what we are hearing and internal job postings and outside in perspective about also laterals coming in and all of the aspects that we talked about. Over to all of us on questions in the room, please. I can see some hands up, and if some mics can go there, please. Thank you. If you could quickly introduce yourself, sir, and then proceed with the question. Thank you.
First of all, let me introduce myself. I represent Symbiosis Institute of Technology, Pune Lavale campus. My name is Kedarnath Bhogshetty, and I'm part of the placement department at Symbiosis. First of all, thanks to MCCI for giving us this opportunity to attend this session. And I'm really enjoying because it is adding value to my knowledge base. As I am taking care of the campus recruitment for our students, especially from engineering, now that the HR function, especially the recruitment part, is being driven by the technology, I would like your thoughts how the fresher students who are still in the campus cope up with this pace of the ever evolving the dynamics of recruitment. Thank you.
I think you're the best person. 80,000 students. I know.
I'll keep the volumes aside. Okay, I think um, my answer will be more attuned to HR professionals, and I'm sure you will be able to gather some insights from it. Uh, for an organization who is very keen and inclined towards quality hiring, will always want to tap into resources who are engaged, right? So somebody on the other side, especially in campus hiring, it could be training placement officers, it could be placement officers for that matter. It is extremely important to create that awareness amongst candidates, and trust me, candidates themselves are pretty aware nowadays to always explore the engagement initiatives by the organization. We recently completed one uh, global coding competition. It was our 12th Codevita competition that we did. And such a huge country, we are known for our abilities from problem solving, analytical abilities. We didn't have a winner from India. We had a winner from Taiwan. We had two other winners from Mexico. Awareness, participation, uh, believing in the competency and being able to showcase it at the right place. So my entire team from campus perspective has a huge focus on what is the engagement that we are doing. That is what is helping us identify who are the candidates whom should we pursue. Are they quality candidates? Are they engaged enough? Are they trained enough? Again, from a business parlance point of view, business doesn't want to wait for 3 months of training. Correct. So today, if I have a campus trainee joining us, plug-in status, ready to plug, is something that the business is expecting, and that is where our pre-engagement series is something that is coming handy. So when I said Kuruma, most of our explore sessions enables training, enables business etiquettes, enable communication, and even if you don't join the organization, it enables you to be a part of the industry ready. So that's something that I would emphasize on, if at all uh, it addresses your question, please. Yes.
We'll take you, Rajesh. Just to add to this, and I can see one hand there as well. We will definitely come to your question as well. Just to add to this, I think I'm taking Tuyok's form. I remember 2004 in Infosys and Campus Connect programs, and they're still very, very popular. The Campus Connect programs, third year students, final year students, and the engagement of Infosys with the students. But I think between 2004 and 2024, what the students can do also is take the ownership of learning in their own hands, because practically everything is available at your fingertips today, which was not the case maybe 20 years ago. So it's YouTube, it's LinkedIn Learning, it's Udemy, it's everything. I mean, you can learn from so many more sources today. And the advice that we would give to college students is go out there and learn more, learn more than the curriculum. Try to understand what's there, that the companies are going to be looking at. Try to understand, what this from seniors, what the interview pattern looks like. And I think it's going to be a combination of curious students, knowledgeable students, and students who stay ahead through agility. That's going to be the game changer for your students coming in from various institutes. I think agility is going to be so very important, and students who stay ahead from that perspective is going to be important. Thank you. Sorry, Neville, you.
Just to add to what Suyog said, I think companies, earlier companies were willing to invest in a 6-month training program and all
Right.
that stuff. We
Right.
don't have the time anymore. We want to, wrong word to use, but plug and play, right? Just take an example. When you buy a new mobile phone, just imagine you switch on your new mobile phone and it's ready to use. All your apps are downloaded, everything is there. Versus, oh, you go to the iOS store, the Play Store, downloading. It's just a waste of time. How can you prove to a prospective employee that you're ready to hit the ground on day one?
Mhm.
How can you show that you have done a great project, which is something really cool? we
Right.
all we all know how projects are done. We all know. How can you how can you dispel that myth of us?
Yeah.
How can you show that you have the curiosity?
Yeah.
How can you show you have the inquisitiveness? How can you show you have the passion?
Yeah.
How can you demonstrate that you know what's going to come in the next 5 years, and you're building your skills towards that.
Yeah.
If you are one of those candidates, honestly, your marks, which college you come from, doesn't make a difference.
Very interesting. Rajesh, we'll go here, and ma'am, we'll take you. We also have a hand at the back, so we'll take all of you. Yes, please. Can we get a mic here, please? Oh, the mic is with you, ma'am. So, no worries. Rajesh, for the person with the mic, and then maybe the mic can come here. Please go ahead, ma'am.
All right. Hi. Hi, Nidhi. Hi, Suyog. Hi, Nivel.
Hi.
I'm Jyoti. I'm from Talentica Software. Talentica Software has a product talent pool. It is an ATS, applicant tracking system. I heard about Chroma a couple of days ago, Suyog. I want to know more about that product because it is a recruitment software. So I want to take an inspiration from a product developed by TCS, obviously. Another question from Nevel also is you mentioned that in one day from 200 to 4 candidates, right? What happened to the 196 of them? Please, how was their experience? Or are you using those database also? Help me understand that.
So out of 200, only 180 responded to the conversational chatbot. So the 20 ditched us. They were not interested. Out of the 180, I think I said 80 went through the assessment process. Customer feedback went back to the people who didn't clear the conversational chatbot, telling them two areas where the chatbot felt they could do better. Unfortunately, I don't know how they reacted to that, but it's better than saying, hey, you've not been selected. You've not been selected because of reason one and reason two. The assessment that we gave to 80 people, where only four kind of cleared it, there were four reasons or four inputs given, whether it was break of logic or lack of understanding of concepts. There were four such explanations given back to those people as to why they didn't clear it. So hopefully that was better than just saying you've not been selected.
Thanks. I think you asked about Chroma. It's a talent management tool. It's not an ATS. ATS, okay, typically organization would subscribe for something which is ready-made, but this is by virtue of a Tata organization. The initial concept was we will provide technology solutions to other Tata subsidiaries. So we developed our own solution. Our own ATS is GRS, which is an in-house tool and stands across every possible ISO audit or any other audit that you can call it off. We've been consecutively been rewarded on talent acquisition space from technology perspective for last 14 years across the globe. So I think if you're interested in GRS per se, I will answer more, no problem. But Chroma is more of a engagement tool from talent management perspective.
It's very interesting, TCS, and then I'm sure a lot of AI and tools and HR tools, HRIS tools must be coming from in-house. So, so it must be so flexible, adaptable, because the moment you get products from outside, the first thing that comes to you is, no, we are not going to be flexible. So it may not be the case here. So I think some of us envy you from that perspective. Please, Ajesh.
Yeah, hello everyone. This is Rajesh Bharatia. I represent a company called Peoplefy. We are one of the largest recruitment firm of Pune grown, 300 plus member team, and we hire upwards of 6,000 lateral hires every year. One of my esteemed customer is right here on the dais. That's Michelin Nidhi. Mine is more of a kind of a sharing of experience on the topic. Since we are hiring day in, day out for many customers across the country. We also have a view on how AI is impacting or not impacting. I think we are talking about employee engagement. I think some kind of engagement starts from the very beginning when you start speaking to a candidate about the job. If it is a technical architect, you maybe there are 1,000 technical architects, but there are 2,000 jobs. So engagement starts right from there in terms of employer branding. So I think so far I have not seen any AI tool that can help with employer branding. That's human is required. So maybe AI can help with some kind of screening, scheduling, those activities, but I think most of the activities will still remain on the human side, is what is my experience so far. We are also experimenting in using AI. So probably there could be examples where those are some very simple, low-hanging, single skill kind of a requirement where you can just quickly assess. But probably if you are hiring for a technical architect or project manager, or where you have, five different things coming in combination, maybe it will take some time for AI to become mature.
Yeah.
And I think it will only generate maybe some new kind of jobs for people to do the same task, probably focus more on engagement and some automation, but maybe some more people will be required to do a different kind of AI related task. So that was a quick, any follow-up comments are welcome. Just wanted to share.
No, thank you. I think yes, certainly it's going to take more time, and if there are some comments, yes, you do agree that it's going to take time. I know there's been a lady at the back. She's been raising her hand, and I'm sorry, we'll have to pause there. I can see Anupama and the panelists here for the next session. We want to respect our time. We will try to coax them to stay back for lunch. I know I'll be there for some time for lunch, so you can definitely shoot all your questions to us during lunch as well, and we'll make it more interactive and more informal as well. So we'll take the question. Please, ma'am, your question.
It's quite interesting to know different perspectives on talent acquisition. My name is Garima Kale. I represent ALMT Legal for Business Development and Marketing. Recently, there's been an interesting news that's been all around about Donald Trump's policies on anti-DI, and there's a huge ban on DI policies. So my question to the esteemed panel is, how do you think such a thing happening at a global level where he's banning all the DEI policies impact Indian organizations, especially if you have subsidiaries internationally? And do we sort of see a change going forward in terms of how the companies have built so strong DEI policies? Do we see a shift now in talent acquisition, considering that it's having a huge impact globally and a lot of international organizations cutting down on their DEI policies? So, what is your take on that, and what's happening in the Indian
Oh,
perspective?
that's such an interesting question. DEI, so just for all of us, ma'am is asking about DEI and what's going to happen. For those of us who's following DEI and what's happening, diversity, equity, and inclusion space, the US has publicly declared the word DEI illegal. So you cannot use it. Just from a Michelin perspective, US is one of our biggest markets. You must have heard in the news that Google and other companies are attracting DEI teams overnight. So there's quite a bit of buzz and things happening in the US. And I think the question is, does this then imply to what's happening in India? So I can take that from, and would love for the co-panelists to add as well. I think in India we still need the nudge for DEI and what we call positive discrimination, because let's look at the numbers. India is the only developing country in the world where the number of women in the workforce is declining. It's gone from 28% to post-COVID now 26%. Yeah, it's surprising, but it's true. Also, if you just look at 30% of our workforce women enter, and then when you come to leadership and managerial positions, it's less than 3%. So it's not a leaking pipeline. There's a hole. It's not even a leak. It's a hole that's happening. Having said that, I do feel, of course, DEI is not just about women. It's about so many other facets of inclusion, which is basically your race, your gender is one of them, your millennials entering. So DEI is a huge perspective. Of course, we tend to look at women first and PWDs, persons with disability, entering. So it's a whole lot of holistic. And we just heard earlier how there are programs that companies are doing. I think we need to still continue as India, because we've just started the journey. But I think we need to make it more than just the quotas. I think we got caught up a lot in the percentage, and how do we look at the percentage, and somewhere in that, maybe sometimes we as organizations tend to get so much over gravitas with the quotas that we tend to forget the real reason that we actually started this. So meritocracy has to be there. But having said that, the nudge has to be there. A little bit positive discrimination has to be there, because we have to understand the context also of which we are coming. We still want to nudge more and more women coming in the workforce, but we also have to have an enabling ecosystem in the organization that enables women to be in the workforce. So you can have 45% women intake in, but the questions as HR professionals that we need to ask ourselves are, how many women are staying with you, and why are women leaving if they're leaving? So I think those are the questions that we need to do, and ecosystem levers are going to play more important than just talent acquisition strategies for DEI. So I think it's a very passionate subject for me, so I can go on and on. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting context of what's happening in the US with DEI space, and therefore what's the impact for us in India. Please, if our co-panelists, absolutely.
I think, yeah, the new US administration has kind of changed the DNI strategy in the US. Um, I'll talk about Harbinger's view on this. One of our values last year was inclusivity. 2024-25, it was inclusivity. Few months ago, we started thinking, should we relook at all our 6 values? Unanimously, there was no question that we will think about changing inclusivity. So inclusivity was just carried forward without any discussion at all. So we are still very, very committed towards inclusivity. I think what Nidhi said is very valid. Many people think of inclusivity as the male, female, gender. And if you're doing good, you're highly inclusive. That's not true. How many people that you promote every year are women? How many people that you promote have got less than 1 year of experience in the organization? How do you deal with freshers versus people who have been in the organization for a long period of time? What are benefits that you give moms who are coming back from maternity leave? Do you give them more benefits than others? If yes, so there are multiple aspects of inclusivity. And as an organization, I think that we are still very, very committed to kind of upholding our value of inclusivity.
Thanks, Neville. I think I'll just quickly give a global perspective here. DI pertinent in whatever now US has done is one thing, but for an organization where we have 152 nationalities operating in 48 countries, I was focusing about compliance, regulation, and it doesn't remain to India alone. While we might be headquartered in India, each country has its own flavor. I'll just reflect back on my previous role as a country HR head for Africa as a continent. And the country itself has laws towards ensuring nationality level hiring, race level hiring. Here, if you in any other geography per se, if you land up speaking or addressing somebody as black, it could be an offense. But in Africa, there are laws around broad-based black empowerment. So hiring of uh, diversity in at large, I think it will demand agility, which many organizations are already showcasing, and it's very country specific. It's very geography specific, and it will continue to build, not only comply but also create an impact. Yeah.
With that, thank you. I hope, as participant, I learned a lot from this last the 55 minutes that we had together. Thank you, Suyog, for coming in. Thank you, Neville, for your insights. This has been extremely insightful for me. I learned a lot. I hope the participants did as well. Over to us. And I know we have eaten to 7 minutes. Apologies.
Thank you. Thank you for such an enriching conversation on how to leverage technology when it comes to hiring and talent acquisition. Nidhi, thank you so much for driving this session so energetically. I would request Mr. Kuldeep Joshi, a distinguished leader in the management field, to please felicitate our esteemed panelists. A round of applause for Mr. Kuldeep Joshi, please. Mr. Neville Postwala. Mr. Suyog Bhandekar. And to Dr. Nidhi Danju. May I request for a group picture, please? So you can please join for the group photo. Thank you to all the speakers. Up next, we will have a short film on Vishwakarma Institute of Technology, our gold sponsor for the event. While the film is coming up, my team at MCCI has shared a little poll on WhatsApp to all of us. We would love to hear your opinion on how upskilling is handled or looked at in your company. The poll is there in your WhatsApp messages, so please do take part in it. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, we now have an interesting panel discussion on streamlining HR operations through data-driven approach. Allow me to please welcome our panelists, Ms. Anupama Kaul, CHRO at Cummins India Limited. Will you please join me on stage, please? She brings a versatile skill set in strategy, project management, and organization development. She is highly proficient in HR systems, leadership development, and technology-driven HR solutions. Please welcome Ms. Anupama Kaul. Ms. Ashwini Shivram, VP and Head of HR at Kalyani Strategic Management Services. She is a seasoned HR leader with over 20 years of experience in strategic HR, talent acquisition, performance management, and organizational development. She is passionate about human capital development and driving HR excellence in growth-oriented organizations. We are happy to have you with us today. May I invite Mr. Pratik Ghosh, CHRO at Forbes Marshall. He's a strategic HR leader with expertise in strategic initiatives, project implementation, and management systems. With a strong foundation in process operations, he has also contributed as a volunteer with AIE SEC Pune. We welcome you. And we have the panel coordinator, Mr. Jacob Verghese, VP and Head of People Services at SKF India. With over 30 years of experience in employee relations, culture building, and strategic HR transformation, he has worked with leading Indian and multinational organizations. Jacob, sir, over to you.
So thank you, Madhura, for that wonderful introduction. So on the stage, we have 60 plus years of experience. Okay. I mean, 3 HR heads, making me shiver a bit. The HR people are the most difficult to handle. So we have this topic, streamlining HR operations through data-driven approach. So right from the morning, we have heard multiple speakers. We are the CEOs, we had Mr. Kirloskar, we had Mr. The CEO of Tata Autocomp. So we are not going to argue or discuss on whether a data-driven approach in HR actually helps. It's a set, it's a done, it happens. So what we'll do in the next 45 odd minutes before we open up for a discussion of questions from your end, we'll hear from what these stalwarts have experienced and what are they doing in their organizations to drive data-driven approach in HR operations. And when we say HR operations, it's the entire gamut. So we are not limiting it to any particular one area. It talks about employee relations, it talks about talent acquisition, which was the previous session. So we'll not go much into talent acquisition. Talent development, of course, talent management, data management, compliances, the life cycle management, onboarding, retention, everything. So all these topics are what we will just touch upon. So my first question to the panel, especially we'll start with Anupama, is you have been there in the industry for years together in HR. When we say data-driven approach, and when you look at industry as a whole, and I'm not initially limiting you to only Cummins, but how far are we as HR, as a discipline, as a fraternity, how far have we come in this whole approach of being data-driven in managing our people resource, which is the most difficult resource?
Thank you so much. And first, I'd like to thank for being invited here, for giving me an opportunity to share my views. We are the panel between lunch also, so I want to be very mindful of that. Let me take a step back. A lot of time when we've been partnering with businesses in the past, a lot of our discussions have been based on assumptions, whether it is around, are we being fair when we do a performance evaluation? Are we being fair with different kind of talent categories that we have when it comes to rating or payment? These assumptions today are more proven and can have more meaningful discussions because we now supported with data. So data-driven approach helps us to have more meaningful conversation at a business level, which impacts our employees. Whether we are talking about pay equity or, the last panel mentioned in terms of how are we looking at promotions? Are we being fair in our approach? So data can actually help us be more impactful. When it comes to HR as a function, while we have made strides, I'm not going to take that away, we have made strides when it comes to using analytics because that helps us to become more meaningful partners with our business leaders. I still believe it's limited to certain set of industries at time. And we can and we should find ways of fastening that journey so that we become more efficient. The fear of the fact that is it really going to impact our job, we need to keep that aside. It is definitely going to make us more effective and more efficient if we fasten our understanding and adaptation with technology, is what I believe.
Oh, thanks, Anupama. Pratik, what is your take on how is the progress or how is the depth to which in industry we see this approach in HR?
Sure. Thank you, Jacob. And I'll take cue from what Anupama mentioned. Firstly, thank you for having us over. Data no longer is fashionable for us. I think that's been said now, though it still is a topic of conversation that we should ideally be making decisions based on data, which is largely factual, right? And in our journey as an organization, I think in a function like HR, there are lots of things driven by perception, just by the nature of the function, right? because it has emotions involved, it has conversations involved at a personal level, and you're very driven by taking decisions based on those conversations and emotions that you see at the workplace. I think data is a nice reflection to say that how does that actually enable your business to go ahead, enable talent to progress. So in our journey, I think we are seeing data as a friendly tool to tell us that what's working in the benefit of members and what's not working. And I think the output of all this exercise is the kind of uh, policies you take out, the kind of initiatives you drive around people engagement. If it is driven by data that's coming, you tend to make a better impact around the organization. So our learning is that we first try to embrace data as is, yeah, as raw as data tells us, and then try and impact and influence it through our initiatives, which shouldn't be looked at anything which is driven by uh, just because it's fashionable and good to do, but it's genuinely because of what data tells you is enabling you. And I think it's no different, by the way, from how business operates. Business operates on data that they collect from customers, and how we go to customers and how we get business. That data, that trend line tells us the future of the business. Similarly is talent. And I think our learning is also, we ignore the fact that it's talent that actually drives these business initiatives for the organization. And we kind of take it for granted that, business will come, customers are there, needs are there. But the fulfillment journey comes from your talent. And it's important to also see their journey progress as you see them meeting your market demands. So that's where we are in this journey, and just an overview from our side.
Yeah, Pratik and Anupama, both of you touched upon one important aspect, that compared to the rest of the business, we are still not there in utilizing data. I mean, and you touched upon a very valid point. The whole business is run by people. And how much of data are we, how much are we data driven in managing these people? And Anupama brought in a very lovely point. Do we still fear what will happen to our jobs? So Ashwini, my question to you, having heard both of them and on this particular topic of are we scared of using data? What are the capabilities that HR folks need to have to be, I mean, we know, for example, a finance guy cannot live without data, but HR people will survive without data. So what do you think are some of the key competencies required to be data driven in your approach as HR leader?
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. Basically, when we are now working with a lot of data and we are using the data, like finance guys, even HR people are very, it is required for HR people to understand the numbers, to understand the data. They should know how to utilize data where and, for taking which kind of decisions. When it comes to business, even as a HR, we have to give them value proposition. So which type of people are bringing, value, which kind of maybe education, which kind of, profiles. So this is for the talent management. Even for talent acquisition, without data, you will not be able to survive in today's world when there are a lot of people who are coming. And that's the reason we are speaking about automation and using AI, because these all things will definitely help us, while working. Even usage of maybe ChatGPT will help the HR professionals, the young HR professionals, to be more productive and more efficient. So it is very important for all the HR professionals to adapt new technology and all these data-driven tools. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I mean, HR has been always discussing in the at least last 3-4 years, what is going to happen once AI comes. The bottom line is that nothing is going to change. We'll have our jobs, okay? But we need to be able to attuned to the technologies which come, and HR needs to step up. And that's where the competency development for HR itself has to happen, to be more data driven, to be more analytical in using data, not to be scared of arguing on the basis of data. Many times we also get caught in arguments which are perception based, and we give up, whether it is for promotions or any other things. But we should be driving that culture of this thing. Now, HR is all about people experience. Okay. The whole reason why we are in the organization is that what is the experience that we give to people? Okay. Pratik, what do you think that how can data really contribute, or data-based approach really contribute to improving people experience? I'm sure it really improves, but what are some of the examples which you can give where you might have used maybe a digital tool or something which is based on data, and that has given a quantum jump onto the experience people have?
I think
With HR.
thanks for the question, Jacob. In our experience, and I'm not claiming any victory, but if you look at our own performance management system, right, it's moved today from a compliance-driven system. Why compliance? That if I don't do my performance management, XYZ does not happen in my career. How could we make that process more engaging and give us actual content to see whether individuals see when you correlate data points? And how do you correlate data points is at exit, you conduct exit interviews and you get a host of reasons why people leave the organization. At the same time, if you claim to have grown at a certain percentage based on your targets, you feel everyone's doing a great job and everyone's engaged. But when you still correlate and see reasons like career growth, reasons like, redundancy or mundane jobs, I think that feedback is best captured through the entire performance management system. And that system is not to judge where you stand as an individual. So we took a hard look at our performance management system a few years back and said that that has to be a powerful conversation engine. And it has to be a conversation engine and not an assessment tool. Done at a time in the year when it can have authentic conversation and data points to tell us whether individuals are truly energized in their roles and how do they see it linked to the future aspirations that we have as an organization. How it's helped us is that when we get such content from members directly, and we get managers who have unbiased assessment, because this doesn't have any link to our increment exercise, you tend to come up with better quality initiatives. And I think this entire point, this entire debate, whether technology replaces jobs, I think of course it replaces jobs. But whether it replaces people, of course not. Because I think you want individuals to have a better quality role that they play simply by what's today available in the market. I mean, we cannot have members, we cannot tell members to use a typewriter when you know that there are alternate tools today that are available for them to use. So similarly, I think what we've learned is that hearing from the member's voice by using digital tools, then data becomes very friendly because it's factual. You take initiatives and decisions that revolve around that process. And I think you start doing that, you see members being more keen to enter authentic data and share more authentic feedback with you, because that's the real place where we feel we get most of our information from, apart from all the performance goals, numbers that we have.
Yeah, Pratik, I think you touched upon the most critical part of people management, which is performance management. And if we can make performance management more factual, based on data, and more, people will see the rationale behind it. And I think it becomes much more easier for managers to have the discussions with their teams, with the team members. And as you said very correctly, if it is not related to increments and rewards, the acceptance and the real impact of it becomes much bigger. any example, Anupama, you got from a huge organization like yours?
I think what we need to realize, I'll give you two examples of how it can improve employee experience. One is when you do every organization today does employee pulse survey. And then there are like standard questions, and then there is this open box where people can express how they're feeling. And for us in our organization, emotions is a data point. If you have the right tool that enables you to analyze, you will design your intervention based on the real voices that are getting captured. So, which means that your actions will now be based on just not the hard questions, which have kind of yes, no answers, but also when you give an open text for people to express their emotions, which is important to address. So that is one thing that we as an organization do well. Where we are migrating is another portal which we call as answers, where employees, instead of wanting to reach out to every HR or manager for simple answers of what the policy says, it has to be easily accessible to them. So we are now collating all the information, ensuring that it is in one place so that it becomes like a click of a button for employees to get all the responses. And when they know they really don't need to depend on either their managers or the HR to respond, pick up the call, everybody's busy these days, it just improves their experience. It gives them answers pretty fast. I think that's the two areas where if we can really work on collating, having that database created and give easy access to employees, you're going to improve their experience being part of the organization.
Yeah, I have an experience on the same thing. Because the biggest complaint people have about HR is you ask them anything, we don't get the answers that day. Because a person needs an answer quickly. I mean, something on a policy, he wants to take a decision on maybe going on leave or what benefit he is going to get. And he writes a mail, or most of the time HR may not be available on phone. So we in Escape introduced a chatbot, and the person who introduced it is sitting somewhere here from my team. We introduced a chatbot, and that's become such a big hit because the dependency on HR, and we don't blame the HR person. They will have focus of so many other things, but for an employee, the experience is so beautiful. I mean, you don't have to ask somebody what is my leave, where do if I want to reward somebody, recognize somebody, what should I do? If there's a transfer to be happening for me, then what are the benefits for me? It becomes so easy, and people really value that. Okay, that's fantastic to see. And the other thing on survey, there's the other part of it. HR can actually give back feedback based on the results which come up. Okay, and even using the data tools itself. So it becomes not only somebody giving a feedback, but he also gets a feedback as to what is the organization thinking or why is it so. So that's fantastic. So coming to the next, what do you call it, impact of data-driven approach is on the productivity and efficiency. Okay, so many times we HR folks think that efficiency and productivity is only for people in the shop floor. We normally measure that, okay, or for the sales folk, okay. But what about HR? How does data-driven approach impact the efficiency and productivity of data of the HR folks themselves? So you have been always dealing with HR folks for a huge organization like Bharat Forge. So what's your take on how does it impact and some of your examples?
Definitely, this approach has helped us a lot. So as we were discussing, we are having multiple entities, and initially HR operations will have to do with uh, multiple softwares, and it was really time consuming for them. But when we integrated it into the one software 2-3 years back, it was really very impactful for HR people. They have increased their efficiency because everything was available on one platform, and it was very, very helpful for them to get data at one go. At the same time, if there are even intergroup transfers, There are some policy decisions across the group. There are few policies which are supposed to, uh, implement in few set of organizations. So these all things which were pretty complex initially when it was not in a one platform, it became very easy for the HR people. And definitely it has helped us to increase the efficiency, because as I was telling you, even the different tools are there in the market. So now HR people are using those tools and increasing their productivity and efficiency. And even whatever ticketing system, the way you have chatbot, even we do have a chatbot implemented in the organization. There are ticketing systems. So even if something is not resolved through chatbot, then people can raise their queries, and even the TAT is measured. So everything is measured for HR professionals as well, the way we used to measure it for sales or the shop floor guys.
Pratik, you cannot escape. Okay.
No,
So productivity and efficiency.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll give-
Especially coming from an engineering organization.
Yeah, I'll give you an
So
example.
how do you do that?
So let me give you an example of 4 years back during the pandemic. During the pandemic, you're left, in an organization, you have the situation where you're unable to move business, right? So that's when you see your talent right there, looking at how do we survive? How does business continue, etc. And I think it taught us a lot, right, in terms of how productive even HR as a function could be. We suddenly were very agile to ensure that whether it was providing care, support, uh, existing facilities, how could they be reused, right? And a lot of technology also enabled that to happen. So, you know, everyone's learning on technology really pivoted at that period of time. And I think from then, that lesson on productivity stayed with us, right? It stayed with us to say that if in crisis you could maneuver things well and adapt and be productive, even as a HR function, how we could ensure that we supported the business, customers, how could we provide enough quarantine facilities for people, ensure that the helpline was created. I think all of that ensured that your members were working towards the betterment of the organization and being productive. Uh, I think tools enable HR function to ensure that they pick up skills which add more value. And I think for us, our journey, we are looking at more of impact than just compliance. I think that's our biggest learning with technology, that complying is easy, right? I'll tell my manager to ensure that appraisals are done, ensure that I give feedback to the system. But can I get up and can each HR member really raise their hand and say that, here, this has been my contribution towards the business. I enabled talent flow from the right places in my organization, and developing that capability, I think, is where lies HR's strength as well as opportunity. I think we have an opportunity to use our intelligence, given the consolidated feedback that we get on talent, on how to utilize skills in the right way. And I think that's been hugely useful for us. And I know the biggest examples are actually at the shop floor, where you've seen huge role transitions of people just by adapting this and not assuming that somebody is going to play that role for more than 3 years. And you have some of those principles come in, and then you can build and have better productivity goals. I'll just leave with a last thought. Productivity is a huge challenge. I mean, in terms of the metrics that one can have, and particularly functions like HR, finance, IT. We take an approach of going with an overall value-added goal. So as a company, for many years, we've looked at value-added productivity per person. And we say that for individuals to be productive, the entire organization comes together. So even HR is aligned with that overall group metric. And whether that means that you get more done with the number of people that you have, or you do it more efficiently, the goal sits with HR. So I think that having that metric has helped us focus more on productivity as well.
So Anupama, I mean, you have been seeing the shift which is happening. I mean, HR not being so data driven earlier, maybe 10 years back or 15 years back, and now we are more HR driven. We are seeing a continuous progression happening, and every day we are taking strides. So in this whole process, when we have to measure the productivity and efficiency of HR, so how has been your experience? What are the matrices, and how has data really helped you to measure your own team?
I'm going to look at that slightly differently. I think what we need to, as HR professionals, start evaluating ourselves is what's the impact that we are creating for the business. So when you're sitting around a table, are you an HR leader or are you a leader sitting around the business? Which means that you have access to so much of data, your ability to analyze, connect the dot, help your business partners to make decisions, because people is not about HR. Business is about people. So it's everybody's accountability. So how are you partnering the business with your ability to look at this massive data, analyzing it, translating it for them to help them take business decisions, sitting around the table? Most of the discussions that happen around is business cost. So it's not about just bringing in people cost. That's the most default bend you would normally see. If you understand data, you understand P&L, you understand business, you can also help business leaders to think differently in terms of the overall cost, because so for me, what is the impact that you're creating for your business is more important. So that's how I measure my team. So a lot of us talk about, everybody loves defining talent strategy. That's the best thing that we like doing, right? How is it embedded with the business? Is your business strategy truly being built along with your talent strategy? Your talent strategy being built along with your business strategy? Again, where will you get that insights from? It has to be based on your past trends. And those trends could be how your business has gone up and down, what's the skill set required, what are the numbers required. And I think that's how I would like us to change our lens and see how we are creating an impact. Because productivity for me becomes at times too subjective.
It's not just numbers.
It's not just
It's
about,
numbers.
it's about the impact that you're creating. And then when the business leaders come to you to say, this is a business issue I want to talk about and I need your insight, you know you have shifted the needle.
And you touched upon a very valid point. The data about people is huge. I mean, when we are saying that, take any product, I mean, we can say there are 100 data points. But with people, we don't know. Infinite data points for people. So as an organization, being able to find what are those relevant data points that we should carry, I mean, catch, capture, carry, utilize, and which to use where. Because as you said, what is the contribution you make to the business strategy? And for that contribution, which data to plug in? Okay, that's a critical capability that HR folks need to have, because you can have so much data, but if you're not able to utilize it at the right time or use the wrong data at the wrong place, you derail the complete strategy. Okay? So you also touched upon Anupama, on performance management and talent management. I'll not relate it to only performance management. I will say talent management, okay, which is attraction, retention, as well as development. So what are some of the changes that you are now seeing in the industry? Pratik, in your experience, you already touched upon some parts of it. Could you in detail go on to one particular part, that is talent development? In talent development, how has data-driven approach helped Forbes Marshall?
Sure.
So let's be more specific so that gives a learning to the people.
Sure. So I'll just, thanks. So we'll stick to a specific example. So, in our organization, we were dominated by sales, supply, and then functions, largely these three verticals. And then, of course, within functions are HR, IT, and within sales is fairly simple, right? They bring in orders and supply dispatches orders. So what we looked at in the talent development processes, that typically sales and supply, we saw talent move at a good pace, at a rapid pace in sales, not so rapid pace in manufacturing. And functions sort of stagnated and went by how sales led them, right? So you had a demand and you were working at the background with IT infrastructure, with HR, ensuring that talent pipeline is in place. When we looked at functions as part of our talent development strategy, when we look at the entire organization, we looked at how each function could get better than what they were doing in the previous year. And this could be through benchmarking and bringing in an outside-in perspective to look at what those functions are doing. And then we found that we had a lot of individuals, given a company that has long careers, we had a lot of individuals and functions who had been with us for several years and largely playing a similar role with marginal increments happening, right? So you'll obviously handle more volumes, you'll handle more jobs, but you are largely doing the same thing. And I think data told us very clearly that either we saw not enough contemporary technology coming in those functions, or we did not expect more than the routine coming from these functions. And then we took a hard look and saw data, and we saw data in terms of the number of years of experience people had in that area, the number of years that they were doing those, playing those roles, and made a very conscious decision of saying, what should be the life cycle of such functions and people playing roles in these functions. And I think data told that to us, right? Data told us to bring in those average number of years down. And obviously, if you want breakthrough to happen in those functional areas, you needed to bring about change, and you needed to look at that talent, expose them to better technology, better, understanding of what's happening. And it helped change the delta dramatically. Let me tell you, when we started this journey about 7 years back, and we were taking stock recently of the last 2 years has seen functions greatly align with that of our operations, right? Whether it's sales and supply. And there's super alignment now, at least the alignment. And I'm not saying we are 100% there, but there's alignment today of every function with what the organization is doing. And I think that was important, because otherwise the function did its job and sales and supply were doing their job. So for us, talent development meant you continue focus in the areas which obviously are easy to measure, but also look at the back end so that you enable that force to be better and take the overall standard of talent in the organization higher. One of the principles we followed was we didn't go in for a high potential exercise very consciously, because we said the minute we categorize, we're leaving others with the understanding that they don't have potential, right? And we said that when you look at potential, you have to cover every aspect of the organization. That's how the functional piece came in.
So Pratik, just to give a flavor of, or to make us understand, had you not done this, what would have been the impact on post-martial, maybe 5 years down the line? What would have actually happened to post-martial?
Interesting. So I think two things would have happened. We would have continued to be an organization that was struggling in operations. See, you can get results anyhow. If you have a dedicated workforce and you largely have great practices and culture, you will deliver results. But I think the organization would have been fatigued. And when I say fatigued, you would see stagnation in business as well, because it ultimately boils down to that. You had one constant where you know that you have fairly great retention levels. So you're not losing people, but you certainly have a fatigued organization. And I think we clearly see that sign that we have much less fatigue today as a result of this.
So that was a wonderful way of seeing what is the business impact. I mean, you said data is saying that retention is there, people are staying with you, but is it leading to business stagnation? Stagnation of the people is one part. People are happy with that, so let's not bother about it. But ultimately, it will lead to business stagnation, and that
And
was
just another data point for you is we see ourselves getting into many newer initiatives because there's talent available to do that within the company. So when your knowledge base goes up and you're able to have streamlined operation, that talent can help you in your inorganic growth that you plan as a company. And if I talk about the number of initiatives we've taken in the last 5 years, it would be double than that of what we would have done in the last 10 years. And that's purely because of bandwidth created through streamlining operations.
That's fantastic. So we have a direct correlation. Okay. So Ashwini, another part is retention. I mean, this is one thing which favorable in all conclaves, anywhere, even within the organization, every discussion happens. What is the retention rate? How do you improve retention? So how can a data-driven approach have you seen in Bharat Forge? How has it really impacted or in the retention of talent?
Okay. So I would like to say that for Bharat Forge, retention was never a problem. But we do have other entities wherein we faced challenges in terms of retaining people. But in terms of data, gave us a lot of insights. So I can tell you that R&D center, wherein last to last year we faced a lot of issues in terms of retention. But this data-driven approach and the way even Anupama mentioned that various surveys and all gave us a lot of insights in terms of what people are expecting, what are their key challenges, and then focused approach towards addressing those challenges helped us a lot. And this year, almost we have improved on the retention percentage. So almost 50% of attrition we have reduced. And thanks to the surveys and the tools which we used, to understand the pain points of our people and addressing them. So these kind of things were possible because otherwise the number of people which we do have doing one-on-ones with them, or those all things we did, but
Traditional,
it
yeah.
will not be as easy as which we could do with the help of tools. And this was possible only with the help of data, and that was the reason we could see results this year, because 31st March happened and we did all the analysis in last 2-3 days, and I was speaking with my BU head that this is something which has happened really positive for our R&D center. So
So that's wonderful. I mean, you said 50% shift in retention. It's a huge shift. Okay, even though you said Bharat Forge does not have much of retention issues. Okay, but could you specify as to using those tools, what were some of the major insights that you got, which helped in? I mean, if you are privy to it, as to what were some of which was not coming out in the one-on-one or the traditional things, because I'm sure all of us keep doing a lot of traditional stuff to manage retention. But having a tool, what were some of those insights which came out?
okay, so major insight was these centers are not in the plant premises, but more or less policies were similar to the shop floor. And the majority people are young engineers, wherein the expectations from the workplace were different. Expectations they required more flexibility, and different kind of policies which were required, and then we take a call and even management decided and give us that free hand, for the R&D centers we should have different type of policies, definitely to attract and retain talent. And this helped us a lot. More or the workforce was more from the Gen Z, and the requirement, as I told you, miss they need flexibility in terms of working hours, and more you know uh, diverse work was required instead of putting them only on one project. So such kind of opportunities they got. And even the projects which were we were getting for the R&D center, they were pretty happy with that, and they could work on various different projects which gave them the learning opportunity. So these things were important for them because of the age group in which they are, and such kind of things even they mentioned in the surveys, they mentioned in to their one-on-ones, and we addressed those issues, and definitely that helped us a lot.
Superb. I mean, getting to know this firsthand through these surveys and tools, and then responding, because many times the managers are not able to see this, because a manager may be of a different generation and these youngsters are of a different generation. A manager is many times saying, "Hey, why is this generation, why is this young fellow asking for something new every time, and where do I give the opportunity?" But I think the tool gave you that thing. Now, when we say HR operations, I think I mean, of course, a lot of things come in that, but one of the major areas is all the benefits. Okay, the employee transport, whether it's insurance, whether it is well-being initiatives that we take. So many of the factors, some of the aspects that we cover for the benefit of employees and giving them the experience, and they are huge cost. Okay. So, Anupama, huge organizations like Cummins, okay, how has data-driven approach or availability of data help you to take decisions on managing cost when it comes to HR operations? I mean, I'm sure everywhere cost can be impacted by data, but when we limit it to HR operations, how has it really helped you?
I think our principle is that there is a cost of doing business, and that should not be mixed up with driving cost efficiencies in the wrong places. So what does cost of doing business means? Which means that I am going to benchmark my benefits to the market, and it is a cost of doing business because I want to provide what's best available within my, obviously phase it out otherwise. So when it comes to employee benefits, or say you spoke about transportation, while it doesn't really fall under the HR purview, but it is a people cost. But the lens is, if that's the cost of business for ensuring that my employee experience is positive, that's where we will invest. So you need to find other avenues of saying, where do you get cost efficiencies? Like I said, our default mode is always to hit on people, headcount. Those are the easy ones. But that's the cost of being people-centric, caring. So as a business partner, how do you help the business identify where you're actually spending and where you can get cost efficiencies? So I think that's the way we look at it in terms of course, we do get this discussion when you look at a P&L and you look at SAR and then you say, oh my God, but that's what we're going to do. So we need to make sure that we are still profitable, find out the right areas of getting cost efficiencies without impacting the employee experience, because it's the people that are going to get you the business. It's the people that are producing products for you. So you don't really want to compromise there. And you don't want to compromise on the experience.
Yeah.
So we also need to kind of change our lens of helping business get cost efficiencies, but in the right places and not necessarily at the cost of employees.
Yeah, I really resonate with you that cost efficiency, not at the cost of employee experience. That has to be the primary. At the end of the day, the whole business stands on people, But still, going to efficiency in the facilities that we provide. How does data? I mean, Pratik, what has your experience been? Because I know Bharat Forbes is also into so many things when it comes to providing benefits to employees. But how do you see that data of those facilities help you to take efficient decisions? So we are talking about cutting costs. We are not talking about optimizing costs. But how can data about those things help you as a leader take those decisions which support business?
So I resonate with what Anupama just said. I think there's a cost of doing business, and that's a detailed exercise at Forbes Marshall, right? It's a detailed exercise without any compromise on the fact that end of the day, you want, just like you want to make your customer and your organization prosperous, you want your members to equally feel that, right? Their quality of, their standard of living has to improve. It has to get better from where it was. So without any compromise on that, what's helped us as a company, and we've had lots of debates because as a company, we don't have a travel policy. We are very silent on some of these benefits that we provide, which we just do traditionally as an organization, whether it's medical facilities or, crisis management. And, we are almost 80 years old as a company today, and we still find a benefit of not touching any of those heads in order to not compromise on those benefits. But I think when we do we do the costing exercise, right, and we look at value addition coming in from the business, we are very clear that there's a price that we factor in and ensure that let's increase the quality of solutions that we provide to the market so that we can always have a premium coming back to us. And I think that principle, and we've actually been consciously asked to stay distracted from any of these cost cutting initiatives unless it is a value influencer, unless you can get better materials and better technology and replace mundane jobs with good machines around. And I'll give you a uh, I'll give you an example, okay? And you treat it how you wish to, right? Uh, if today you have a canteen facility and you have members in the canteen facility and they're manually cleaning vessels, right? Uh, as a company, investing in a machine is not a request that those members will make to you, right? But if you are very clear that you want members in your canteen to provide a better service to people when they come for lunch or when they come for snacking and not be bogged down in cleaning vessels, and you find it worth investing in that machine, right, which will not give you any ROI, okay, there'll be no ROI calculation because we are not cutting number of people in the canteen, right? We just said that, listen, there is technology that's available to do that today. So if dishwashers, etc., can do the job and a company can afford it and factor that in, that this is what we would like, right? We would like to have a canteen with modern machines, and we would like people to provide for hospitality and service and not be bogged down in cleaning vessels. Honestly, I think the experience went up, right? It didn't hurt the company. It didn't hurt the business. So I think I really like the principle of saying that do what you're good at, do more of that, right? And then factor in the cost to say that you wish to provide certain benefits that make you stand out as an organization. In our journey, the entire value added productivity has only gone up. We've never seen a decline. That has sort of given us the assurance that it's the right thing to do. So yes, and we don't neglect areas like, replacing, like, when you have members retiring from the company, when you have say attrition in certain areas, would you not provide those opportunities to your existing members, compensate them better, and as a result, you provide growth, you save cost of rehire. Uh, it's a saving that you're making as a company, but I think it's a win-win situation overall. So I think some of these principles has helped us to say that we can be productive, we can increase productivity by focusing on the right areas.
Yeah, I think my question was a bit misunderstood. Okay, so my the essence of my asking the question was not to see that are we doing cost reduction based on it. So I'm just giving an example to just try to say what I wanted to say. So we in SKF had we spent a few crores of rupees on air travel, okay, because all our staff are allowed to travel where, not bothered about what grades and everything. So we did an analysis of last 2 years data because we see the costs continuously going up. Of course, there is an effect of inflation and fares and everything. But one thing which we found is that 70% of our 70 to 75% of our tickets were booked either 24 hours or 48 hours before. So that gave us a trigger to bring in a policy asking our employees, why don't you book tickets 7 days before? Because we analyzed the data of the fares and we found that the same fare is much cheaper if the people do it 7 days before. But we are not stopping people. If there is a business exigence, we don't want people to say, Ki, tomorrow there's an emergency at some site and I'll not go because 7 दिन पहले मैंने ticket. But that is left to the managers. Okay, so this has really helped us to still provide the same facility, but see that somewhere the discipline comes into the organization. So that was what I was intending when I actually asked the question. So anyway, so shifting to a data-driven approach, okay, is a cultural shift. I'm talking about specifically HR folks, because we know that many of us have been so tuned to be working based on what somebody says or our own perception, and we go with it. Okay, but bringing in that cultural shift is also the role of HR leaders like you and me to make people understand within our own fraternity, within HR, that this is going to help us. Okay, because otherwise, getting any tool, buying any platform is pretty simple, but making our own people to religiously use it and use that data is a shift that we as leaders have to drive. So, and when I look at Anupama, so many years, you must have seen that shift happening in Cummins, the traditional way HR has been working and now it has changed. So what has been some of those actions to be taken, which you have taken to bring this shift?
It requires a lot of change management, and I think where sometimes we fail to drive um, seamless changes is because we don't spend enough time in change management. So what we have learned from our past, and it's not always that we've been great, Cummins has been great in change management. I think we've learned from our experiences where we have faltered in the past, where when we have introduced a tool, we've just introduced it. You know, this has to be done. It's coming from the top. Not really realizing that the users of the tool are mostly down the levels. The shift that we've done is being more mindful about how we are going to drive the change, which means creating a lot of awareness. Again, having a lot of forums available, whether it is through electronics or the traditional ones that we're talking about, capturing voices of what is failing. Uh, and then making sure that your system can be tweaked accordingly. Now, it does become a challenge for an organization like Cummins because most of these changes are driven at a global level. So tweaking for regional need becomes a big challenge. So spending a lot of time, what we have recently done is spend a lot of time in designing the change management approach, creating awareness. Now, if the change is for HR, but you don't need to create awareness only for HR. That's another mistake that you make. You still need to create awareness for the leaders and the managers who are going to get impacted. So in the past, when a change is driven for HR in any tools, you limit it to that audience. You just forget the impact that the stakeholders are going to have. That's another shift that we have done. So right now we are going through changes in the way we are structured in HR, but we are creating awareness across organization, across categories, which includes even the shop floor employees. Hey, this is what is the changing, this is the impact, and this is how we are going to measure our success. And then building enough milestones that help us to capture the voices. That's another one that's very important. I think that's the shift that I have seen we've done the way we used to do change management versus the approach that we are taking now as we are going through these changes.
I think a wonderful discussion we had for the last 45 minutes. Okay, and we'll leave with this thought from Anupama that to change this approach to become more data driven, even within HR folks, we have to use all the techniques of change management. Okay, and it cannot be only limited to HR. The organization has to also see that HR is shifting and what are the benefits and how are they going to benefit out of the whole thing. Okay? So thanks to all three of you for this wonderful discussion. And I already got one ultimatum that we are standing between lunch and the discussion. But we cannot close this discussion without questions from you. So anybody has any questions to any of the panelists, please. Some mics.
Thank you.
Yeah, ma'am,
Hello.
we'll come to you. We'll come to you. There's somebody at the back. We'll come to you. Yeah, go on. Go on. You got the mic. Go on.
So, hi everyone. Thank you to the panel for the wonderful discussion. My name is Mugdha Vartak. I come from the company called Vector Informatic. My question is to Anupama. You mentioned that HR leaders should help the business leaders with the data that they have by analyzing the data, connecting the dots, so that they can take the impactful decisions for the business. Can you give a couple of examples where you have done that in Cummins? Keeping in mind the cost efficiency as well as being conscious about employee experience?
I think one of the places that we've done that globally very well is when we wanted to drive the pay equity. Now, pay equity, when you're especially driving it for the female, globally for the female employees, is a very sensitive issue. And there, I think what we did very well in terms of, apart from analyzing, using analytics to prove, to support the business case as to why we need to run few cycles of pay equity for our female employees across global, similarly in India. And then to have that business case and present it to the leaders, giving an opportunity to have that transparent conversation, hearing the voices. Again, like I said, at times it is the right thing to do. Having said that, you need to have, it was supported by data. It was supported by the fact that when you do one great example where we did that, we had conversations, we drove the change, and we helped managers, individual managers see it. Because as a manager, my first reservation is, I have Pratik and I have Ashwini. Now, Pratik is going to now feel suddenly very bad because Ashwini is going to get a hike. So you need to have those transparent conversations to drive this day. And this data-driven approach has really helped us to bridge, to some extent, I don't want to make tall claims right now, but has helped us to at least bridge the pay equity gap that we've been experiencing, or vastly which organization experience. So this is one example that I can immediately think of.
Thank you, Anupama.
Yeah, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Annada Ranade, founder director for HR Niti. It's an on-cloud HCMS platform designed mainly for MSMEs. So I have a slightly different question too, because for a very big company, CHOs, CRHOs sitting here, like you all drove the quality initiatives for your vendors, and that became sort of a trend in the MSME and SME sector. Are you all doing some initiatives for HR? Because that seems to be a very big gap in MSMEs when we go to them. They don't have the luxury of having very senior HR managers. So the processes are not there, the policies are not right, and technology is a very far cry. So as the leaders of the industry, are you all taking any efforts to bring what you all have learned in your organizations down to the vendors who are catering to you?
Yeah, so let me just address it first. Right at the beginning of today's this conclave, I think we had Mr. Girbane on the stage, and he was talking about what MCCI is doing. So one of the programs is an MDP program. So the next one will be hopefully launched next month, where MCCI runs a series of sessions. So it's a full package specifically addressed towards MSMEs with the objective of creating more capability in the HR people who work within the MSMEs. Okay, which you said very correctly, because MSMEs cannot have the luxury of what big organizations have. But that is where some of us contribute, is that we come as faculty for those programs, and then we share what is happening. Okay, and giving them those tips of what could be done. I mean, it could not be done at the scale that what Cummins is doing or Escape is doing, but give them those seeds. Okay, sow those seeds in their minds that you can actually go back to your organization and start thinking about what could be done in digitalization, or in case of policies, how could you frame, giving them an example of what is happening in the good organizations. Because I see a big shift in the way MSMEs, those who are working with larger organizations, have started thinking differently. So they have an urge, they today want, from the traditional owner, that the way he used to think only about profits, today's owners have got better thought in terms of continuity, sustainability, and everything. And that is where this programs, maybe you can touch base with anybody in MCCI and add people to come and attend those programs.
So I think on similar lines, we started the social compact movement, which was a trigger from the migrant labor issue that we had right after the pandemic. And we realized, by the way, data helped us realize the gap the vendor base had in terms of practices, and practices as crucial as medical benefits like ESI coverage, right? For example, it's been a huge learning for us. And actually, our data collection process itself took 2 years. And we can imagine if a company of our size had that, there are companies that are much larger than us who are part of the group who are seeing this. And actually, that data point is helping us. As Jacob said, many of these are entrepreneur run organizations. So, you know, the HR hat is worn by them, right? Not necessarily have HR teams, but I think we're able to come together with them. And it's a huge exercise just by ensuring that we have the right data points and then provide for certain things which are easily extendable. Like, for example, if we have an insurance help desk, why wouldn't we open that up to our vendors, right? And help them find their way through claims. So we took very simple measures and realized the impact was very high. So we've taken that as a step. But I think in the bargain, what's happening is we see ourselves coming up with better HR mandates to our vendors, right? In terms of pay equity, in terms of facilities, in terms of, you know, cutting down overtime, in terms of ensuring safe working conditions, host of things, I think, that are coming as practices. And once we mandate, we just don't mandate it, but help them also, because they may not be resourced enough to do it themselves.
Yeah. I think we'll be pushed out. So one last question.
Yeah, my name is Advait Kurlekar. Question for you, Pratik. You did mention that, you know, whatever you're doing good, do more. But when you start doing more and giving more benefits, it slowly becomes routine, hygiene, practice. You know, people start expecting it, and slowly it becomes an entitlement. How do you manage that?
No, I think that's a wonderful question. We ask this, by the way, we participate in GPTW rankings, many organizations do. And, you know, we have this score on unique and special benefits, always not to our satisfaction, right? Even though we feel we provide for it. And I'll share the answer we got from the mentor, from the consultant who came to us. They said that sometimes it's communicating your practices more and more to people to say that it's still a benefit that we provide. And sometimes it can push you to think of something beyond, which can be new to industry. But I think entitlements, if it's taken in the right sense, I think we've been able to manage it okay. We do struggle. We do struggle with it because it's taken for granted. But if some of the things are taken for granted, it's pushed us in the right direction, because even those places call for better ways and efficient ways. It just pushes us to raise the bar. So I think that's a struggle, right? But it is helping us push the bar because it's not seen as any new benefit that you're providing.
Before we are pushed out, let me thank all three of you. So thanks, Pratik, thanks, Anumava, and thanks, Ashwini. And hope this discussion was really beneficial. There's no doubt that data will help strategic HR to take decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. May I invite Dr. Nidhi Dhanjo on stage, please, to felicitate the speakers. To Ms. Ashwini Shivram. Yeah, you can use this space, please. To Ms. Anupama Kaul. Mr. Pratik Ghosh. And to Mr. Jacob Varghese. May we have a group picture, please? Thank you. Before we break for lunch, a little mention for our sponsors. A big thank you from MCCI to our gold sponsor, Vishwakarma Institute of Technology, where the tagline goes as maximizing human potential. SB Patel Institute of Management and the newly formed Pimpri Chinchwad University, Learn, Grow and Achieve. Institute of Management Development and Research, nurturing business leaders since 1974, and our exhibitors. PHI Edge for HR by HR, Valisha Technologies, redefining possibilities, empowering change, and Tempest Management System, designed with inputs from more than 5,000 HR professionals. Thank you to all the sponsors and exhibitors. We will now break for lunch. We will be back here. We'll try and be back by 2 o'clock. Let us use this time to also visit the exhibitor area, which is adjacent to the auditorium. The lunch arrangements have been made in the room number 4 and 5, also next to the auditorium. You all must have found little cards on your chairs, MCCI chatbot. You could use them to access the chatbot and see what all it has to offer you in terms of access to a lot of information. Thank you and see you at 2 o'clock.